Hey everyone, this is Lindsay Sturkey, and I want to share something new coming up soon that we are excited to invite you into. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm guessing that you want to grow spiritually, but sometimes it can feel like real life gets in the way. But here at the Real Life Process, we believe that growing our faith is meant to happen in our real life, not apart from it. And that's why we are so excited to invite you to join the Real Life Practice membership, which is launching in January 2025. This is a space where we'll share tools and resources to help you live out your faith in all the complexities of your real life. We'll have 2 live monthly calls, 2 group coaching programs, plus training videos and downloadable resources that will give you the tools that you need to integrate everyday life and spiritual growth. You'll also have a space to connect with other people who want to grow in all areas of life, as together we learn to recognize and respond to God's presence in our own unique story. To learn all about the Real Life Practice membership launching in January and how you can sign up, visit thereallifeprocess.com/membership or find the link in the show notes. We hope to see you inside the community.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the Doing What Matters podcast. I'm your host, Teresa McCloy.
And I'm your co-host, Erica Vinson. We're thrilled that you're listening in today as we dive into discussions about life, business, and all the things that truly matter.
Here on the Doing What Matters podcast, we embrace a holistic approach to living, a way of life that's rooted in rest, not rush. It's about connecting to our real self, our real life, and our real work, and remembering who God uniquely created us to be and redefine success through a different lens.
So whether you're here to find inspiration, practical advice, or just a moment of connection, we're glad you're here.
We are excited about this episode. And I say we because I have several of our team members here with me today because we're going to dive into talking about the fact that I'm leaving in a couple weeks to go on sabbatical. We're recording this 2 weeks before I am out the door. There's an element to this sabbatical that's super important to me. And so I wanted to bring on my friends today, my team members, to have them share with you what this experience is like for them as we prepare for my sabbatical. So, besides Erica, that you already heard from, I also have Lindsay Sturkey with me, who's our executive director of the Real Life Practice, and Nancy Bowens, who serves with our community and as my executive assistant. So, welcome in, ladies.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's going to be a fun conversation. They're all holding back and so polite and so nice and kind. I want you all to hear from them. I shared probably with the team, I don't know how long ago, back in the beginning of the year. Is that, yeah, probably a year ago, that I wanted to practice a sabbatical. It's part of even what we teach here at the Real Life Process is this idea of renewal. And we always look at the weekly renewal of Sabbath and then a quarterly retreat. But there's this whole bigger element. And I think it came up for me back on a retreat that we led maybe a year ago, just about sabbatical and Sabbath and all of these types of things when we read through Ruth Haley Barton's book. And I thought, it's time. But when I made that decision, it doesn't just affect me, it affected all of these ladies as well. And even some of our other team members that aren't with us on the call. But I thought it'd be interesting for our listeners to hear just how we've prepared and what we have done as a team. So I'm just going to ask each of you, Lindsay, I'm going to start with you. What do you feel like have been some of the great things that we have done to prepare?
Well, for us, a lot of it is looking ahead to the beginning of 2025 when you'll come back. Because at the end of the year really is the time that we start thinking, what's next for us and what new things are on the horizon. So we had to start those conversations a little bit earlier than usual this year because we knew during that end of the year you would not be around. And so it's helpful to have you in the conversation when we're talking about what's next. Something that you and I have done to prepare is talking about this new membership that we are launching in January called the Real Life Practice membership. This is a place where we talk about how to live out your faith and practice it alongside others in your everyday real life. And we're going to have 2 live group calls every month, 2 group coaching programs, videos, downloads, resources, all kinds of things to support you in your faith. And so, as we prepare to launch that, something we've had to do is think ahead of what steps we need to take to launch well so that we're not waiting until we walk in the door in January and saying, okay, we hope that this works. We're saying, what can we do now ahead of time so that while you are out, I can move forward with our team in promoting it, inviting others to join, and preparing the content for that new membership. So that's been a big preparation for us, looking ahead far enough that we can say, while you're out, what are the action steps that I and the team can take that we have already talked about together and decided ahead of time?
And that's been strange because to me, it feels like it's already the end of the year because I'm stepping out. I've been in 2025 mode since summer. It's just been strange. But I hope, even as a team, that we carry over some of that momentum. One of the other things I'm bumping up against is we have next year planned out. We gave our network community all the dates for next year, and that felt so good. So, one of the things I'm hoping we carry forward as a team is we keep that momentum of working out in advance now that we have it. Nancy, how about for you? What do you feel like that you and I have worked on or that we've worked on as a team to prepare?
I think one of the things we had to do was when you started talking about this, I can still remember when you announced it at our fall retreat last year in Effingham. And I remember you said it with such trepidation and you said, it's out there now. So now I'm really going to do this. It felt like forever away, but it is already here. Even in that moment, as you said it out loud, it started the wheels turning. And I think as we've gone along, we've all done different things to prepare, had to talk about what's important. What are the priorities? What are we going to be working on while you're gone? Even while you're gone, this team still continues on. Our communities, none of that changes. So we still need to know, how can we support our people? How can we support one another? So it's like we had to establish those priorities, what was important to you. And one of the things that's important to us as a team is that you feel supported while you're gone so that you can walk away and you can close that door and not have to think about, are they going to do this? I think that's part of putting those priorities in place. And we had to work through some protocols. Who's going to call who and what's going to happen? Who's going to handle emails? As you started to say, you've been doing all that planning. In our network call this week, you had us break up into groups and talk about what are we thinking about for 2025. And like you had your word of the year already established in our group. We're like, wow, that really gets me thinking that I want to start being proactive. So it's inspired us to make some of those thoughts begin to happen, not just for the RLP community, but for us personally too.
Yeah, that's cool. I appreciate you sharing that because I do think we come into this fourth quarter and even my mentor, Dan Miller, used to plan 48 days in advance. He would be done with his planning for the next year sometime in the middle of November. You have to go back and count up. And that was always his goal. And I have felt a little bit of that momentum. One of the things you mentioned is how we all are like, when I'm gone, how are you all going to stay connected? And one of the tools we use is Voxer, Voxer, and it's kind of a walkie talkie type app that we talk on. And Erica, can you say more about what you all decided, even in connection, and how you all worked through that? Because I was like, how often do you want to meet? I gave it to you guys to come up with.
Well, I think one of the things we recognize is that we are a virtual team. And so while we have the joy of working together, how can we remain connected across the miles? Voxer is one of them, just to be able to hear one another's voice. We set a certain number of days a week. We're just going to be checking in the morning and saying, hey, here's what I accomplished yesterday. Here's what I'm working on today. We might even ask for help or connection with one another. But I think just hearing one another's voice, we recognize that there's such value in because it keeps us in the room together. And that's
Yeah.
really important for us.
Our team has a monthly team meeting. I gave it back to you all to say, do you want to have that? Is that still important? Letting go of that control was hard, but I realized you may or may not decide to have a team meeting. So I think that was a learning experience for me, as I hope that it makes our team stronger to just say, what do you guys want to do? What is the decision that you want to make? Erica, what do you feel like we've done to prepare or that you've specifically done to prepare?
As you said, Teresa, we work mostly in the network, partnering together. And so I think from that perspective and overseeing our coaching team, we know that you're going to be out of the mix as part of one of our master coaches. We know we have 3 other master coaches that are going to serve our network beautifully. We've opened and expanded our calendars so that people can pre-decide and get their Q4 coaching scheduled. That feels great from a network perspective. It reminds me of the activity we've done on retreat. We do it as a team often, but it's that plant, prune, tend. What are you starting? What are you stopping? What are you continuing? And the podcast was one of those big discerning moments for us of how will this project carry forward? Because you and I just began co-hosting together. We're excited about the momentum and the conversational aspect that we've been able to bring. And so we had this moment of going, and what if we pause? And there can
That
be
was
fear that
hard.
grows. There can be fear that comes up there of like, well, will this be able to pick back up if you pause now? And so we prayed over it. We brought it to the team meeting and just allowed each of us to speak about what's your perspective from your seat in the room with the podcast. I love what we heard together. We trust that as you go on sabbatical, it's time to say the podcast is going on a bit of sabbatical for new episodes. How can we continue the conversations for you as listeners? We trust that there's some great content over the years. The podcast has about 3 iterations, 3 different names. We're going to pull the best of episodes, those greatest hits for those 8 weeks so that you are on sabbatical. We're going to be playing those best of episodes. It gives us a space to re-engage in the new year with fresh energy, fresh content. And we're anticipating that, but we know there's going to be some really rich things happening in the midst of the sabbatical for you and the podcast.
It really was a journey, even for me, to let that go, as many things have been. I have never thought of myself as a consistent person until the last 7 years. Some of the things I've been consistent in are every day I do a gratitude practice called Extraordinary Moments on my personal social page on Facebook and Instagram. I do that every day. I have done the podcast every week since 2019. I've never repeated an episode except the Christmas episode. I do the same episode every year during Christmas week. So that was just a really hard thing for me to say. If I'm really going to go on sabbatical, what does that look like? It didn't feel right to record a bunch of episodes ahead. We're pretty in the moment with our podcast. It's usually a week or 2 in advance. It didn't feel right to just say to Erica, hey, you need to do these 8 episodes while I'm gone and make it happen. So as a team, that was a journey. I'll be honest, I'm super excited about the episodes I've chosen, and I already have them picked out. We've got new intros on them. I hope you're going to enjoy listening to them. It became a part of preparing for me to go on sabbatical, to even go back through and listen and hear some of those early episodes and say, wow, that had some really great content. That's something I want to share. Or so I'm excited of the episodes that I chose to share with all of you. They feel very current and relevant because the content we're working with in Rule of Life, encouragement, and the Enneagram, some different podcasts that I pulled, people really enjoy. So that to me taught me to trust you all to say what we should do and what worked for you, even from a time commitment. How much more can you take on? Anytime one team member steps out, everybody is stepping up. So I will say this, that is one thing in Q4, we don't have a lot of new things. We're not, besides this one membership launch, which we've been preparing for all year, we don't have a lot of new things that we're doing. I would like to ask all of you, though, what are some of the concerns that have come up for you all as I'm stepping away? Like, each of you are different. You have different roles on the team. What are some concerns that you're having? Lindsay, I'll start with you again.
I think for me, because Teresa, your voice is so central to what we do here, there's the fear of when your voice isn't present, can we continue to carry on the heart of the message? I believe we can because we have all walked a lot of this journey together. Part of your whole mission is passing on the process to other people, including our team. But I do think there is that element of, man, this is so tied to who you are and your story. there's that question and curiosity of what does it look like for us to continue that when you step away?
Mm, I love that. Thanks for the honesty. Nancy, what about you? What concerns are there?
I think for me, it's more of a practical because I do a lot of the back end emails, responding to people. Our passion is to obviously respond to people in a timely fashion and, get things done the way they should be. And as you're stepping away, I want to handle that part of it so well that when you come back, you don't have a whole inbox of stuff that needed to be handled that got missed. I want to make sure that I'm stewarding that trust you placed in me, not only for what concerns you, but for what concerns our community.
Mm.
So that's a concern I have. And you and I have spent an extensive amount of time talking through that. And so it's less of a concern now. And it will be as you're ready to step. I feel like we've got some great things in place, great preparations. But initially, it was like, whoa, how are we going to do this? We want to make sure that we do it well and staying connected to the team. I would say that's the other part of it. And Teresa, you generally are the one who starts the thread at the beginning of the week. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Monday. And then we all respond. Well, now it will be us doing that. And so I think it's going to make us grow. Not that we don't think about one another, but it is going to make us think, oh, I need to check in with my people.
Yeah.
And how do we bring those people together? And even as we brought on a new team member, Rachel, we want to make sure she feels included in that because she's stepping into this adventure. I think you've done some amazing back end work as you've entrusted us with parts and pieces of this RLP baby of yours that you birthed in your heart so many years ago. You've entrusted each of us with a part of that. It's like when you have a child, raising them up, and all of a sudden they're old enough to babysit their younger siblings, and you entrust them. And all of a sudden you come home and the house is clean and the laundry's done and the child is still alive and all of it's good, And I
Well,
feel
if
like
y'all will
that's
come
what
and
we
do
get
my
to do.
laundry while I'm on sabbatical, that'd be great.
And so we get to do all those things where we get to rise up and be that new person that can do these things at a higher level. I think we're going to entrust one another more and need each other.
Too. That's one of the things I'm excited about. We have an amazing team and you all work together and trust one another. But I think there is another level of that. Lindsay, you talked about it earlier, even the decision making confidence to make decisions. You don't need to check in with me. That's going to be a growing edge for me to go, wow, they don't check in with me when I come back. They don't have to. But I'm excited because that's growth for all of us. Erica, what about you? What concerns might you have?
I think for me, it's more anticipation than concern because I do know how intentionally you've structured our team and the different places you've invited our voices to teach or lead. And I'm excited even for the opportunities. Nancy and I were having a conversation. I said, I'd love to bring your voice more into some of that network space. And so it allows space as it expands, even for us to use different giftedness and different talents, all the things that y'all have mentioned, whether the back end pieces or some of those voices. I mean, I'm aware of those things. I'm holding it with open hands to say, if we need clarity before we ask, we'll ask what we know to ask. And there's going to be things that come up that we're just going to have to trust and move forward and know that our intention is to steward well. And more importantly, to steward well the people that we're called to serve and one another. And so I think as long as that's our heart and to lead with love in that, we'll be okay.
And I think what you're saying leads us into that question of how will you guys grow through this and how do you hope to grow? Because and it's so true, you take one voice out of the room and it allows other voices to grow. I trust all of your voices. I think it'll be fun to see what rises up, who steps up and what voice you have. One of the things I know about the work that we do, it's never, yes, it started and this whole thing started with kind of my story and my stuff, but it has evolved into so much more, even as we brought the tool of the One Life maps and newer voices into the room with some of those team members and other things that we're doing within our network and some of the people that step up now and have voices there. That's exciting to me, the growth of what will be different. And part of this whole journey for me is then how do I come back differently? Like what looks different and what am I anticipating being able to do? Or what is God calling me to do, with my voice in the room and some of those things as well. So, yeah, I'm just curious. Does anybody have any thoughts on how do you hope to grow? How do you hope to be stretched in this? What are you looking forward to? We've all worked together for a while now. Nancy's probably the newest on the team, been with us about a year, but been in our community for a couple of years. What's the growing part of this for each of you?
I know for me, there's an invitation to trust myself because with you, if there's things that need to be decided or if we're trying to figure something out, I have you as a safety net because you are the one who's leading the whole organization, which is not a bad thing to have that connection and collaboration. I'm hopeful that in this time, I will be able to trust my own intuition and my ability to hear from God and to lean into the team and to know that I have the freedom to move forward in the way that I best discern is right and trust that is enough. I think that's something I'm looking forward to leaning into is to trust my own self to lead in the way that you have given me the freedom to lead.
Mm, I love that. And yes, I hope you all feel that freedom. We're having a really authentic conversation, but that you guys feel that freedom to lead. And I think that's how a team does go to the next level. So part of even me saying, let me step out is to say what does happen, what does grow and come out of that. Nancy, Erica, either one of you, is there something that you even can already feel?
I think for me, I think it was, not sure, Lindsay or Erica, one of you just used the word invitation. I think we've said that a couple of times in this conversation, but I think that's such a beautiful way of saying, I feel welcome to say something different than I didn't or stretch a little bit. I mean, our voices are always invited in the room here, but it perhaps gives me more of an invitation to say, "Oh, I have a thought about that, or I would like to do that." And Erica, when you said, I'd like you to help with such and such during the community calls, I was like, yeah, I think I could do that. I felt honored that you would ask, that it would be something you entrusted to me. Teresa, you always lead with so much grace as we're learning and growing, and it allows us to trust our instincts to do the next right thing. Even as you're leading by example, by stepping away, it feels like I have permission to live my life just a little bit differently because I see what is possible. Not that I'm going on sabbatical at this point in my life, but it's just thinking that it doesn't always have to be the same way. And so that to me is a growth edge for me. So
That's beautiful.
For me, it is about the expectancy piece. I was sharing with our network community a couple of words that had hit me, and it was one was flexibility and one was consistency. And as an entrepreneur, when things shift like this, especially when there is a leader in a company, you are the face of the business. The tendency can be, what's the expectation to fill that space? And how are we going to step into those shoes and really lean into it and go, okay, we're all entrepreneurs. God has given us the gift of flexibility, the gift of agency over our time. And we have the beautiful process to say we can trust time blocking, know which people are in, our people blocks, those types of things, our projects that we're doing. And so it allows us to continue to show up consistently and lean into the roles that we have and also to move into it with expectancy and not just a heavy expectation of like, oh, I have to carry all of this. I think that's part of the growth thing of just, it is again, that open handedness and really approaching it with a sense of wonder and anticipation and trusting that God is going before you and he's got us as well as we're moving forward.
You use the word there of entrepreneur. And part of this is we're familiar with the word sabbatical in the ministry space. We're familiar with it in the academic space. And I think part of my desire with this is to say, can an entrepreneur, can a business owner practice the same self care and health care, physically, emotionally, spiritually, as these other places? I believe they can. So I guess that's part of my journey is to say, can I lead by example a little bit, experience it so I can talk about it? What does it feel like if the business owner steps away? How do I grow? What comes up for me? What are my concerns? So, yes, we have a lot of great structures and processes. Everyone knows their roles, they know their responsibilities. I think that brings confidence to our team. We know who to reach out to. I've seen you all work in that even this year. I travel quite a bit and used to be when I would travel, oh, always checking in, whatever. Now I'm gone for a day and I'm never even in my email. I'm not checking things. Calls are happening, programs are going on, and my voice is not always in the room. That's a beautiful thing. Thank you all for joining me. Thank you for your authenticity, for sharing from your heart. We may have to come back and do an episode in January and say, but how was it really? How did it really go? What was the real things that happened? Y'all can save all that and we'll air it on the podcast. We want to tell you what really happened while Teresa was gone. We shut it all down and we brought it back to life on January 6th when she came back. But thank you all, each and every one, for how you serve, what you do. Our network community, they've been amazing in how they've leaned in to say, yes, go, take the time. Thank you each for being with us today. This is a moment for me. I close the podcast every time just saying that every ordinary day has an extraordinary moment. This is a moment to look at all of your faces and say, yeah, we're going to do this thing and we'll see how it comes out on the other side. Thanks for listening to the Doing What Matters podcast and for being with us today.